Hello, people. This is Al Richards, and you are listening to The Other Side of Addiction. And the reason why this show is called The Other Side of Addiction, because I'm going to share my story, and we're actually going to have guests on this podcast that's going to share their story, what it's like being on the other side of addiction. And I have a beautiful partner that's over here, and I'll let her introduce herself because she has a better voice than I do.
Hi, my name is Lorie Warburton, and I am here because I have been on the side of addiction. Al's never had a problem himself with that, but I certainly have throughout my life, and through my 59 years of experience throughout life, I've now become Lady in Red, your first responder, and I'm here to share my journey with you so that others aren't afraid to do that and to touch on some very sensitive subjects. So that's why we're here, and felt like it was very important, especially through COVID and all that's happened and all the people suffering in silence, and businesses who have people that are afraid. They're at home, they're afraid, they come to work and they're not doing their best, they're afraid to go to their bosses and this kind of thing. And so there's two sides of things, and I'm happy to be here today, and I'm excited to see what we can do to help other people and find out what their superpowers are and get them uplifted to a different state.
I agree. That's the reason why we chose to do this, to share our stories and to bring other people on this show that can share their stories. Because one of the things that hurt me while I've been battling on the other side of addiction is basically the embarrassment of telling people what I was going through. And people that I've known for years finally started seeing a difference in me. They started coming up to me and going, "Hey, are you okay? Because you don't seem like that same energetic gal. And I mean, yeah, you're still fun and loving and hugging everybody, but there's something that's not quite right." Mm-hmm. In my eyes, I was the same. But when people who are around you all the time and they see that, and one of the best things that helped me with all that I was going through was I started talking. And once I started talking with people, I cannot believe the response I got. There were so many people coming out of the woodwork that I've known for years that was telling me about that they had an addiction, or they had a spouse or a son or a daughter or an aunt or an uncle or a mom or a dad. It just started blowing me out of the way. I mean, not blowing me out of the way, but blowing me away.
Yeah,
how's
blowing
that?
You away. Yeah, exactly. It does blow you away.
Yeah.
I throughout my life, I've stayed positive throughout everything, and so people were always, "How do you stay so positive? How do you do this?" But that saved my life. People, when I came out with my story, had no idea what I had been through. And when I actually started opening up and sharing that with people, they were so shocked because, I just went on with my life. I just, was always that person. I never wanted anybody to feel the hurt and embarrassment I was going through. So I would do anything. I can read people like a book. I see they're having a bad day. I'm going to make their day better, right? But yet I was suffering in silence. I was the one not telling what had happened to me throughout my life. So, I understand that because it was embarrassing to me. And, I almost lost my life about 6 years ago, taking my own life with alcohol because of embarrassment. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Al, because that's where I was at that time.
See, and you and I, we both thought of the same thing. So almost 2 years ago, I thought about taking my own life. And it wasn't due to the embarrassment or an addiction, but it was what I was dealing with when I was dealing with the addict. Because I felt like every time I walked in the door, I was stepping into a battlefield with somebody who was already battling things. I had no clue. I mean, I had no idea what this person was going through, even though I was trying to be. I kept thinking that I was going to ride my stallion in, and I've got all my shining armor, and I'm going to jump off this horse, and here I am, but I was going to jump off the horse, and here I am. I'm the knight in shining armor, and I'm gonna save you. It's like the Dudley Do Right type commercials or cartoons where where you see the lady tied to the railroad tracks, and here I come, I'm going to come and I'm going to save you from this train. Mm-hmm. I made so many mistakes in the 7 years that I was in that battle. And maybe this is something you can help with and help those out there. I had so much anger and so much pain and so much hurt, still the embarrassment that was there. I handled things so wrong. Most of the people that I have met that are battling addictions, like you just mentioned, you've got something inside. There was something you were holding inside. You were making everybody else happy and things, but you were holding stuff inside. When somebody like myself on the other side, we're trying to save that person, but we say it with what we think is the best way. And it's, how can you do this to us? Or I can't believe you're doing that. Basically, we continue to throw daggers at this person, and this person's got daggers all over him already. That was when it took me 7 years to figure this out.
Yeah, my life was a battlefield ever since I was 5 years old. I was living the battlefield. And, one thing that was said to me was I could never tell anybody these types of things. And so I chose to shove that in the back of my mind and move forward with my life because I was told no one would believe me anyway. So just to keep going. And that's exactly what I did. So a few things that happened to me was I noticed that I was given certain talents by my higher power. I like to call him God, but he helped me through so many things by giving me those talents from the very beginning on this journey. And if I didn't have those talents, I might not be here today. But I mean, I've accomplished a lot in my life, and I am so thankful for the journey I went on, the downfalls, the battlefields I did have, because now I can help others get through them. I lived a battlefield. I didn't have one peaceful moment in my life until I had a spiritual awakening, I'm going to call that, 6 years ago. And once that happened to me, my life changed forever. And now I'm on the other side of things. And so I understand where you're coming from. I never will forget the first time I shared openly and honestly on Facebook that I had a problem with addiction. I'll never forget that. And I was scared. And at the same time, I received a wonderful response from everyone because they just had no idea. And the doors, flooded open. And since that time, there's been so many wonderful things that have come in that have really been, just heaven sent, I guess I can say. So, but it doesn't mean I still don't go through problems.
Well, we all do, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it happens every day. That's part of life.
Exactly.
Life's a roller coaster.
But you figure out, I think, in this journey and on your process, who you're meant to be. And most people get lost because they don't feel like they have a purpose. You get through depression. There's so many different angles and different things, but I find that people lose their purpose. They don't know why they're here. They feel worthless. They're depressed. They're embarrassed, like you had mentioned. And it actually is not a weakness to reach out for help. Right. It's the biggest strength you can have. So that's kind of why we're here today and talking. And I'm so blessed to know you. I mean, it's been wonderful to be your friend for these past 2 years and the things that we've gone through and seen, together.
We both look at things in the same way. God brings people into our life for a reason. Mm-hmm. So there was a reason why we met.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I liked what you said about, again, the embarrassment, kind of stuck on that word there. But I go to a men's group every Monday. It's just men. We like to say we're the real men. And the only reason why we say that is because we're not ashamed to say what we're feeling, and whether it brings tears or not, that's okay. But for men, it's hard for us to reach out to people because that's just not how men are raised, I guess. We're supposed to be strong and tough, and to be able to reach out and ask somebody for help, that was one of the hardest things for me. And it was a blessing once I did. Once I realized that I could reach out to somebody and talk to somebody. And many of these people saw me just break down and start crying. But at first I was ashamed a little bit. But then after that, I'm like, I'm not ashamed because this is who I am. This is what I'm going through. And I'm telling you, I'm hurting and I need help.
There's a lot of people out there hurting, men and women, families, because these types of things that happen are family diseases.
Yeah.
Addiction so hard. I mean, and there's more. I mean, there's abuse, there's all kinds of things. And my life was full of all of that. And I noticed at a very young age that I had my first drink of alcohol. And suddenly, for once in my life, I felt sort of free, I guess, or I felt that feeling going away. And that's when I noticed, that's the only peace I ever had. That, and then, my singing and different talents that were brought into my life, and that I noticed that I was good at. And that's where I had a voice. Most of the time I didn't have a voice. So once I got through all of that, and now I'm here to this point, I'm so excited to be able to share the journey. And I know we can't do that in one podcast. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well, we're going to have a lot more, and we're going to have guests. We're going to have special guests on
absolutely.
here that have gone through the same thing, right? So we're going to get different perspectives from other people, because even though I've lived on the other side and you've lived on the addiction side, everybody goes through it in their own little way, right? I mean, it's totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many things that I've put my family through throughout my life as well. And one thing that I would like to say is being accountable for, sometimes we like to blame everything else and all these circumstances that we've had throughout our lives, right? But the day that I started becoming accountable for me, gosh, maybe I have a problem too. Maybe it's me. Like why am I making these same choices over and over again? And it was so freeing to be able to, even though it was hurtful, and go all the way back through my history to figure out, I need to fix me too. I can't just keep blaming things, in life on my circumstances or other people. I now have to take responsibility for my part in that. And so that's kind of what led me, on a journey of discovery that has been actually really beautiful. But also, I didn't realize how much I hurt my family. And I just wanted to say, about a year and a half ago, I almost lost my son. Because he was also an alcoholic, but I was too busy being in my own addictions. And I don't know if I want to call it feeling sorry for myself or trying to kill myself, but we almost lost him, a year and a half ago. And the struggles that our family went because of that. And he actually blamed some of that on me. And then I had to go back to where I was. It was very hurtful. Thank goodness I didn't reach out to alcohol or anything at that time, but it was a painful time for me. So there's tools, there's things we can give you throughout this podcast. You can learn to talk to your family members, to become better, to go through things, but none of us are exempt from going through a problem, and actually my family got closer because of that in that circumstance. And we were able to start listening to each other a little better, watching for the signs. I mean, there's all kinds of triggers, and everyone's triggers are different in life on this side, my side of addiction. You know what I mean? So,
and you hit it. The communication is key, because when you said earlier that you had to start looking at yourself instead of blaming everybody else. Me, on the other side of it, I did the exact same thing. I was always blaming my wife. This is why I'm feeling this way. You've caused this. You're ruining our marriage. You've ruined our finances. Blah, blah. It was her, blah, everything. It took me 7 years to figure it out. Up until probably 5-6 months ago, that light bulb finally went off. And I think this is the reason. I'm a spiritual person as well, as you know. I remember I'm constantly hitting my knees asking God, why am I continuously going through this? Outside voices were telling me, get out of this marriage, get out of this marriage. You deserve better. You deserve better. Yeah, I believed I did deserve better, and I do deserve better. But something kept me there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I'm right, but I believe I am. The reason why God kept me going through this is because I had to figure it out. And I figured it out. I finally stopped throwing everything at her. And I finally said to myself, okay, wait a minute. I'm messed up. I got to figure this out. I got to figure out who I am. Mm-hmm. And I got to figure out what I can do to get myself out of this situation. And as soon as I started working on myself, the exact same thing happened to me as it did with you. All of a sudden, my relationship with my wife did a 360. Now, you know, she's over 100 days sober, and she's been there before, but there's something different this time. I can feel it in the air. I can see it in her personality. And for her, for the first time in 7 years, come up to me and go, there's something different about you. And whatever it is, keep doing it, because
you know what I
it's
think
working.
That was, Al, too, because I remember some conversations that you and I had together at bringing God more into our lives, you know, because when we are full of gratitude, when we notice like all of the good that he's given us in our lives as well, it does start to change. I wouldn't be here today if I wouldn't have had that spiritual awakening that I did. And I'll touch base on that in another podcast, but that actually saved my life, you know, and I'll never forget that. And so, you know, starting out the morning with gratitude every single day for everything that we have, right? And I remember when I opened up our first conversations about that kind of thing, right? And you were very spiritual already, but you've become even more since I've known you since that time. Yeah. And when we forget about that is when things kind of start to go awry, you know, when we forget, hey, where we come from, like all the blessings we have, even though we might not have everything we need at this time, we actually do if we think about all the gratitude and where we came from and why we're here. And we're starting to discover this because now we're helping other people to work through those things. So
and that's the whole purpose of this podcast, right, is to get out there and let people know, because me being on the other side, I want people to know there is help out there and there is a way to get through it.
Absolutely.
There is a way to get through it, because I don't want people to go in and start thinking the same thing that I thought of taking my life because of what was happened to a loved one, you know. And you're the same way. You want to reach out to people and say, hey, there is hope. And I mean, we've talked about God and spiritual, and we don't really push religion or anything like that. And whatever your belief is, I mean, believe in whatever you want to believe in, but believe in it, because there is a higher power out there. Whether you call it God or just a higher power of the universe, whatever it may be, you have your right to do that. But yes, it makes a huge, huge change in your life. I mean, very quickly. It seems like it's slow, but after you go back and start looking at it, it's like almost overnight it changed.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm so grateful for everything I've been through, all the hard things, you know, because that's what your weaknesses become your strengths. You know, they truly do. And to look into the hearts of people and know that I've been on every side of this. I mean, abuse. I've been through depression. I've been through losing my mom, where I almost lost my entire identity and didn't know who I was anymore, because she died. She was my best friend. You know, I started losing myself at that point. I've been through job loss. I've been through all these different things that, you know, make you start wondering, you know, up in your mind, like, why am I here? Like, I'm not doing anybody any good. And then you start down talking yourself, you know, and really like, one of the things that I'm very good at is helping people discover their talents. So interesting to me to talk to people who think they have no talent at all. It doesn't mean
Everybody does.
yeah, like painting, singing, these types of things. Of course, those are talents, but there are many other talents and superpowers that people have inside that is such a gift. And by talking to them, I can bring out those things in them so that they can start really living and figuring out, oh my gosh, like I do have a purpose that, so yeah,
It's funny that you said that when you said the purpose.
mm-hmm.
So my wife got a job. It's not what she wants to do, but she got a job. And I'm very grateful that she's working because she hasn't worked in 4 years. I remember one day she called me up and she's just bawling. She calls me up during her break. And I'm like, what's going on? What's wrong? And I think, something bad. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear this because this is what I've heard in the past. And this starts driving her to wanting to drink again. And she says, I just started thinking, I have no purpose. I have no purpose in life. I don't even know why I'm here. I just don't get it. And now that was tearing me up inside to listen to her tell me these things. And I did my best to comfort her and do my new skills, the new communication skills that I've learned. But the amazing thing happened. So there's this girl that she felt like, this girl at work, she felt like this girl didn't like her. Always snappy with her, short. And I remember telling my wife once, I'm like, well, maybe this girl's going through something that you don't know about. And the best way for her to let it out is she snaps at people or she's short with people. Could mean that she does like you. You just are taking it the wrong way. She goes, well, it could be. The very next day, she calls me again. And she goes, babe, I know my purpose. 24 hours. She figured it out. And I'm like, well, great. This is awesome. What is your purpose? She goes, I'm a good listener. And I says, you are a good listener. I remember when I first met you, you used to sit there with your arms folded and just pay attention to everything I'm saying. But I'm like, so what made you figure this out? She goes, remember that girl I was telling you about? She goes, I finally went up to her and started talking to her. I found out this girl's husband has heart issues and he's in the hospital. And the hospital won't let her stay in the room because of COVID restrictions. Mm-hmm. And this girl is afraid of losing her husband and not being by his bedside. And she started telling me this, and I'm going, oh my gosh. And she just sat there and let this girl just talk to her. And she said, babe, after about 7 minutes of conversation, all of a sudden this girl was wearing a smile on her face. And I was just trying to give her the positive parts of things. And I'm like, yeah, see, God has given us all a talent. Mm-hmm. Every single one of us have a talent. Absolutely. And sometimes it takes something bad to happen in our lives to figure that out. But she found her purpose within 24 hours. So I'm glad that you brought up purpose because that changed her whole attitude. I mean, again, the second day I watched her totally change. She got all happy and giddy and she felt like she was worth something because her whole life, she's felt like she hasn't been worth anything.
Yeah, I know. I remember when I first met her, your wife, and I could tell the sadness inside that she had. And, I am so happy that she figured out that she has that sort of talent that she can give and do,
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that, I feel sometimes that women, in general don't accept me, and for whatever reason that may be. And even though I try to talk to them or befriend them or whatever, I mean, it's something that I've dealt with my entire life, and so I have a very small circle of friends, but also I'm very open to learning why this is and talking more about these things, because I'm sure there's other women who feel the same as I do. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Or men, who feel inadequate or whatever, or they want to be more like so-and-so or whatnot. But we're all here to just, I love this just having vulnerable conversation, open, honest communication. And we'll get more and more into this as we continue
yeah.
with this, because there's so much hurt too underneath, and I would like to talk a little bit about that as well, because hurts are things that are there in families, in friendships, in relationships with people at work. It affects your entire life. And
Mm-hmm.
so by being ones, I mean, I've become willing to share openly and honestly about my story, even though there are things that are very hard to talk about. It's not easy to come on and share your weakness with people.
Well, again, it goes back to that embarrassment,
Yeah,
right?
it's just not easy to do that, but I find the more that I do it, the more I help others. And I have people writing to me all the time through instant messenger on Facebook who were going through addictions, problems, this or that, thought that I wouldn't give them the time of day. And then I always would respond to someone. That's why I like to call myself the first responder, because I will be there and I will raise your revenue and business. I will raise your morale. I'll help you. And I've had all these comments. Wow, I can't believe you're talking to me, or thank you so much for that advice you gave me. So, anytime I can help someone, that's what I want to do, even if it makes me look like, less of a person, or somebody didn't know, that I
Yeah.
had gone through that. And the more I do it, the more thankful I become, the more gratitude filled that I have as well. And there's a lot of embarrassments that I will share on my part throughout this, just so I can help other
Yeah, and
people.
I think we both will.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's surprising. And that's one of the other reasons why I really wanted to do this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I started sharing my story, people that I've known for years, and again, no names will be mentioned in here, but
Absolutely.
they started pulling me off to the side, going, "Hey, can I chat with you for a little bit?" It's like, yeah, and we'd go off into the corner somewhere, and they're like, "Hey, I really appreciate you sharing your story, and I don't know if you knew, but I used to be an addict, or I was an alcoholic."
And you didn't have any
And I'm
idea.
going, and it started happening
Exactly.
more and
Mm-hmm.
more and more and more, and that's when I opened up my eyes and went, you know, cancer is such a nasty, nasty thing, and it affects every family
Mm-hmm.
everywhere,
Absolutely.
all over the world. And I have come to realize addiction's the same way. It affects almost every single family, because now that I've been getting out and I've been talking and being on other podcasts and doing talks, the amount of people that are coming up to me
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Hey, my son's been battling heroin addiction for the past 10 years," and you're just going, "Oh my gosh, it's everywhere."
Yeah, it's a healing process. It really is. And when you can have people open up, the first admission, the first time you can speak to somebody about these things, a healing process starts. I've got a homeless brother. He's been homeless for 5 years. I've tried to help him through his addictions and everything. He's now in prison again. And I went through a lot over that. But I also learned a lot through helping him, and what boundaries we can talk about, boundaries to help families to heal, the communications, like you stated, all of these different things. And, we're here for a reason and a purpose.
Yes, we
we
are.
we were finding our purpose, right? I'm finding that I have more than one or two, but main thing is I do want to help people, and that's why we've become willing to open up about these very sensitive subjects, because that's what they are, and hopefully we can get people who are suffering in silence to reach out to us a little more, and so that they can start their healing process as well. And when I talk about this, sorry, I get a little sensitive. I'm going to probably get
you don't need to be
emotional
sorry, because we're both going to shed tears
Yeah.
during this. Yeah.
There's been a lot of tears shed in my life, interesting. I had told you about an eye problem I was having, right? And when this specialist told me, hey, your eyes aren't making tears anymore, I said, that's probably because I've cried so many throughout my life that
You're
I can't
out?
cry anymore. Yeah, I'm out of tears.
Oh,
Well, I
my
hope
gosh.
that's true. But no, I like to be able to be real. And like I said, all of these things are very sensitive, but I care so much. One thing I was given throughout my life that never went away, no matter what happened to me. And I could tell you stories that will make your toes curl. And I don't want to have anybody ever feel sorry for me. This is just, something that I want to share to help others, be it women, men, children, whatever it is. But, I find that, being able to cry, being able to be real, being able to just say, hey, I went through this. Don't feel sorry for me. I've never been a victim. I've always been a victor throughout my life. And that's why I feel like sometimes certain people are meant to be leaders and listeners and those types of things. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. we got Lorie snorting over here. So, hey, we're going to take a few minutes to take a little break right now. But I hope you will rejoin us because we've got some more great things to talk about.
This podcast is brought to you by High Point Coffee. How do you start your day? Start with a cup of High Point coffee. Whether you want it iced, blended, or hot, High Point's got you covered. Located in West Jordan at 1735 West, 7800 South. Also, with our partners in Oxford, Mississippi. What's your High Point?
Have you ever gone through a hard time? If you have, I'm sure you have at one point thought, nobody understands what I'm going through. My name is Tamara K. Anderson, and I'm the host of Stories of Hope in Hard Times. Join me on Resilience Talk Network, Monday through Friday at 12:30 p.m. to hear the stories of other people who have been through hard times and come through with hope, faith, and some tips that you can benefit from.
Hello everyone, this is Brad Neufeld, host of Resilience. You can catch my show every morning at 8 a.m., Monday through Friday, right here on the Resilience Talk Network. Tune in to discover what it takes to overcome any challenge that you may face in life. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Al Richards with The Other Side of Addiction. And right now, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, High Point Coffee in West Jordan, Utah. I tell you what, you guys go there. Once the girls get to know you, they're going to know you by name. As soon as you walk in that door, they're going to know exactly what you want. So I highly recommend going to High Point Coffee in West Jordan. So.
Yeah, awesome.
Hey, so we decided we're going to talk about throwing daggers. Was that our next thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to start? Because I've thrown a lot of daggers, a ton of daggers.
You're welcome to start. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. So I know you've just recently gone through something. And for us that are on the other side, like I said earlier, it took me 7 years to figure this out. We're really good at making a person that is hurting already to feel even crappier. Is crappier a word? I think crappier is a word. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So
we'll make it a word.
I mean, I know in other episodes we're going to talk about communication and things like that, but that is one of the biggest things that I had a hard time learning. And we spoke a little bit about it briefly earlier in the show. But when somebody messes up, even if it's us on the other side, because we're going to mess up as well. But when somebody slips, I have learned now the worst thing, and I may be getting emotional right now, the worst thing to do is to beat that person up because that person has already beaten themselves up for that slip, right? All we do, people who are listening to this with us on the other side, when we start throwing daggers at this person, look, we ain't perfect either. I've screwed up a lot of things in my life. And when I've been told that, you're a dumbass or whatever you want to put out there, belittling somebody to make ourselves feel better, to me, that is one of the worst things you can do. And when you're doing that with somebody who's battling addiction, it compounds by 100 times.
It really does, Al. The thing about it is when the person who is dealing with the addiction and they already know that they've disappointed their family members or they've done this or that, right? There's a lot of hurt, a lot of embarrassment already like that. But when someone almost loses, for instance, my kids almost lost their mom. And when they feel like there's a problem, or if they hear, oh, we think our mom might be drinking again or something like this, rational thoughts don't go through people's minds, because they become afraid, scared that the same exact things are going to happen without even really asking. And so that person feels attacked. And when you're under attack, the first thing you want to do is lie. You don't want to say what's going on because you don't want to hurt anybody else. You don't want to say what's truly been bothering you or going on.
Yep.
So,
the wall goes up.
The wall goes up, and you're, the thing about it is cunning, baffling as alcoholism is. You don't know when it can strike or what can happen. When it does, you need somebody to listen and not, like you said, belittle or throw the daggers or pound the door down or do whatever, ransack through your house or see what's going on, because you're not in the same place you were 6 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever the circumstance may be. And so we all get scared. So the person's scared who's going through it and it's happening to the family members are scared. And this is where, we need to bring up on our next show about the communications and how to handle things better on both sides, and how one thing that has helped me throughout my addiction and my sobriety and all of this is to become brutally honest. Well, that goes out the window when people are throwing the daggers and attacking. Then you feel you're in the spot and you're all over the place. Another thing is, if someone has been drinking, you don't talk to them about things at that time either, because that person isn't ready to do that.
Oh, they're loading the gun. Yeah. That's what I found out. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I had somebody tell me, well, you're back to zero. You're at zero. And, when you go through a relapse or something, if it's big, small, whatever, it's nobody's ever at a zero. I'm sorry, but everybody is someplace. And that's some of the worst phrasing you can use. Yes, maybe you need to start your sobriety date, again.
Your new birthday.
But your new birthday, whatever you want to call it. But positivity, trust is built with trust, right? So if you've lost a little bit of trust or something or people get scared, like I say, there's ways to open up those doors. And sometimes you might need to get a little outside help to looking in to help with that, communication gap or what have you. But it's a very sensitive subject, and it can happen to anybody, especially in all these times. I mean, I got a little nervous there throughout the presidency and what was going to be happening. And there was all this talk and unsurety, and as, in my sobriety, even as confident as I felt in a lot of areas, I started losing a little confidence. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to our country? And I think a lot of people felt that. Yeah. And businesses closing down and everything. And, all I wanted to do was reach out and help people and lift them up, and tried to find ways to do that. But also I live by myself, and sometimes being in silence and
the head starts going, right?
Yeah, wondering what's going on and these types of things. So yeah, it's important that we don't Like I say, brutal honesty is very important. Accountability, of course, is very important. But when you're attacked, it's sometimes hard to do that.
Well, and it happens with anybody, whether you're an addict or you're not, or whatever. When anybody attacks somebody else, we all get the same reaction. I mean, we're going to fight, right? We're going to put up our wall or do whatever we needed to protect ourselves. I remember one time I was being the knight in shining armor again, and I'm giving my wife all this advice. And she finally said, she goes, "Can I stop you?" I'm like, "Yeah, what?" And she goes, "Will you listen to this?" And I'm like, "Okay, what?" She goes, for flipping once, I wish you would be my husband instead of my damn therapist.
Yeah.
Holy crap, did that hit me hard. I mean, that's like taking a knee to the crotch. Still, I didn't get it. I was still trying to be that knight in shining armor. And I go back, and I've shared this many, many times. She was 100% right. She wasn't wanting a therapist. She was wanting a friend. She was wanting somebody that she could talk to. Now, again, which we're going to discuss more next week about communication, but those were skills that both of us still had to work on to help us get to the point where we're at right now. But I wish I would have figured it out then, because she could be 2 years sober by now.
It's hard to not get angry. I mean, there's anger in there because, like I say, these subjects are very sensitive, and in my life, and I have a boyfriend, and his son went back to prison and is fighting addictions too. And like I mentioned, my brother as well, going back to prison, and these things affect the family, and you think, well, how should I handle that? Should I have done this different? I've learned one thing, and it's called a 3-day rule.
Please share.
And I'm going to mention this. So this is kind of how I deal with things.
Okay.
And I'm dealing with my own issue right now this way. So day one, you have something happen in your life. It doesn't need to be a relapse or whatever. It could be at work, you're mad, right? Anything, right? Well, you're going to have all these natural reactions that come, right? But you shouldn't speak right then, because if you do, you're going to say things you don't mean, right?
Yeah.
And so what I do is I write everything down the first day, how I'm feeling. And I look at that and I get all of that anger out. I get those words out. I get whatever I need to. The second day, I look at it again. I'm like, okay, am I still feeling this way? A lot of that goes away. And then by the third day, the true way you feel is there. And you're more calm, cool, and collected to discuss the actual issue instead of all of this list of other things that the daggers, I guess you might want to say.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's my 3-day rule. So
that's a really good rule.
I hope that people can learn from that, because I'm actually putting it into play myself, and I've helped some other people with that, and they're utilizing it, and it's helping them as well. So I don't know.
No, it's a very good concept. It's something very good to do, because that's something that I've had to step back to do, because there's been a few times I've gotten upset with my wife, and it's not because she drank, because she hasn't, but it's because of something that's kind of come in between us that brought up old feelings. The old me, I would have barked out right then,
right?
Because I'm the same way. I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. But that little bird in my head, or I think Brad and I have talked about it before, but it's that, to me, it's my spirit talking to me. It's like, stop, and I stopped. And it took me, I think it was probably about 24 hours later, but I got myself calm, and I was able to talk to her in the correct way, which I'm really excited about next week.
Me too.
Because bringing up communication skills, I tell you what, this just is not even going to just not help you with family life and dealing with your loved one who battles addictions. This is going to help you with everything.
Every aspect of your life.
Every aspect. And when you slow things down, this is a fast-paced world, but when you start learning how to slow yourself down, like you just said, take that 3-day rule. I love that. Start writing things down. You're going to see a huge change, because I don't like conflict. I mean, I really don't. And we all get into it. And some of it I've brought on my own self. I mean, I've started it. But that's one thing I like about getting older. You get wiser. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When people, I'm going to be 58 this year, and I'm thinking, man, I'm getting close to 60. And some people are like, how does it feel like being old? It's like, I ain't old yet. But, one thing, I'm very grateful because there's a lot of people that don't have the opportunity to get to 58.
Exactly.
So what I have learned, everything that I've learned through my life and everything God's put me through has led me to this moment right now. Mm-hmm. So I love the 3-day rule. I think that is something that everybody should give it a try.
I think one other thing too is I mentioned before the gratitude, but if you wake up in the morning and you immediately start thinking about what you're grateful for, because sometimes you wake up, it might not be the exact house you want to live in. It might not be, oh, I want this or I want that or this. But when you actually, as simple as I have 2 kitty cats at home, right? And I mean, they save me sometimes, and that's something on my gratitude list, believe it or not. But as I write these things down, as I think about them, my spirit starts to it's like I become overwhelmed with thankfulness in my heart, and then that's when I don't forget the guy upstairs, and he's just part of my life. So whoever you choose there is a power that's greater than yourself that can restore you to sanity. And that's one thing we need to not forget about. And
amen.
That's how
and I think here in the near future, that's another subject we should touch on is changing habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've changed my habits in the morning too.
Mm-hmm.
I have a certain routine that I go through, and it has also made a big difference. And I love the gratitude thing because I used to get up every morning and write down 3 things that I was grateful for. Now I write down everything I want to manifest in my life. And then at the end of the day, I write down things that I'm grateful for. And I'm always grateful that my wife was sober for another day. Mm-hmm. Always, always grateful for that. But for the folks that are listening, I mean, it could be something as small as I'm grateful that I'm able to hear the birds chirping outside my window. Or
absolutely.
I even say sometimes I'm grateful that I had the money to put gas in my car so I can get to A to B. There are so many things to be grateful for. So
well, I know sometimes
a lot of good things.
One thing throughout sobriety or hard things that people are going through, I just want to touch base on this. Sometimes we're working so hard on ourselves and becoming the best versions of ourselves that we can, trying to be perfect, trying to do this, trying to please people. We forget to have fun.
Yeah.
We forget like taking a little drive and noticing the sunset or whatever like that. And I noticed that that's what I was doing a lot. Like I forgot to have fun. And I mean, I was always a fun person, right? And now it was like I was afraid to have fun, and that I was going to mess up or something if I had a good time. But these are all just real feelings, true feelings coming from my heart. So
yeah,
anyway,
I love it. Lorie, I'm getting emotional. So grateful you and I have been able to finally make this happen. And I do want to give Resilience Talk Network a huge thank you for allowing us to be here.
Absolutely.
To be able to do this. Both Lorie and I, we really hope that the audience that listens to this will tune in because we've got a lot of great things to talk about. We've got a lot of experiences to share. We will have guests on our show that will be sharing their stuff, but both Lorie and I, we're here to help people. We don't want people to feel like they're alone because they're not. There's a lot of stuff happening out there. And stay tuned. And we hope that you tune in for our next episode. And thank you for being here on our first episode. This is so exciting. This was actually a lot of fun, even though some tears were shed. It's good I don't have mascara on because it might be running right now. But tune in our next one. And let's talk about communication.
I do want to say surround yourself with positive people
that
build you up and lift you up. Stay away from negativity, and know that you are worth everything. So
amen.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lorie, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And Resilience Talk Network, thank you so much. We're very blessed. So thank you.
Thank you very much.